Yes, I'm Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II, President of the North Carolina NAACP State Conference, a member of the National Board of the NAACP, and the National Chair of Political Action. North Carolina, in its history, has some areas in which it has never really repented of, particularly regarding race. One of them is, of course, the Greensboro Massacre, where the KKK was actually assassinating people in Greensboro. Another is the eugenics, where black women and minority women and poor women had taken from them what only God can give. And another is the issue of the Wilmington Ten, which should have been settled a long time ago. The state should have repented of its actions. 10 people, 1 white, 9 African Americans, led by our good friend and brother, the Reverend Benjamin Chavis. And by the way, I had the opportunity to serve at Russell Memorial A.M.E. Church not long after Ben Chavis had also served there while he was incarcerated and while he was earning his Master of Divinity degree from Duke University, from which I earned my Master's of Divinity as well. This state has a history and has had a history of acts of the past in which people have been discriminated against and incarcerated or violently hurt in ways that has damaged the very flow of history, the very flow of justice in this state. And we need to turn away from that. We need to turn around, and when we have an opportunity, we need to repent and engage in restorative justice. Let me just say it in this framework because I've been thinking about it from the standpoint of numbers. Here we are in 2012, 114 years after the Wilmington riots. The Wilmington riots of 1898, November 10th, 1898, which in fact, 3 to 5% of the city of Wilmington were killed. It was a race riot designed to stop fusion politics and put black people and progressive whites in their place. It set a tone for race riots across this country. In 1971, when Ben Chavis was sent to Wilmington by the United Church of Christ, actually the sister denomination which I pastor in, the Disciples of Christ, 1971 was 73 years after the Wilmington riots, and Wilmington was a powder keg. The closing of black schools, the undermining of attempts at desegregation literally had the whole city on edge. And he went there from a denomination predominantly white that has always promoted social justice to try to bring some calm, and most of all to try to articulate what justice would be, particularly in a city that just 73 years later had been the place of a vicious race riot. Of course, we know the story now. They were falsely accused, falsely arrested. They were sentenced to more than 282 years, wrongfully through racialized both arrest and racialized conviction. In 1980, the appellate court, the federal appellate courts, overturned those sentences. Of course, we know some of them were incarcerated, like our good friend Ben Chavis. But in 1980, the federal court said that the convictions were wrong, the sentencings were wrong, the incarcerations were wrong, they were politically and racially motivated. Now here we are in 2012, 32 years after the federal courts have said this was wrong, and the state of North Carolina has not brought itself to pardon these 10 individuals, some of which by now are deceased. They've gone on with their lives, they've made great contributions, but this state needs to pardon them. We're calling on the governor to do that. This history is too long, it's too ugly, and it's too wrong. And it's time for us to do the right thing in the time in which we have. And there's no better time than to do that than right now. So the national NAACP has joined the North Carolina State Conference branches to put the full weight of the NAACP behind this call for the governor to pardon the Wilmington Ten. Follow the lead of the federal courts and do what is right. The time is now. And not only should the state of North Carolina pardon the Wilmington Ten, but we should learn from the lesson. They were fighting for equitable education, constitutional education, the full protection of Brown versus Board of Education and the ruling in 1954. We should pardon them, and we should think about where we are now in North Carolina, because right now we see acts and efforts to be regressive, to undermine public education, to resegregate our public schools. So actually, in some ways, we're stepping backwards rather than forward. A pardoning of the Wilmington Ten would not only be the right thing to do because of their personal lives, but hopefully it would make us rethink about the direction we're headed now in terms of public education. We want everybody to go to change.org, because you can make a difference on this, and sign the petition, email everybody you know, tweet everybody you know, text everybody you know, and get them to sign this petition so that this year we can see a pardon of the Wilmington Ten. It is long overdue. This act should have never happened. North Carolina should have followed the federal courts in 1980, 32 years ago, but be that as it may, let's make it right today. Go to change.org and sign the petition.